Hello, my name is Monica Kretschmer, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Universal Women's Network, Woman of Inspiration Words. And this is the Woman of Inspiration podcast, where we speak with women who lead, inspire, and motivate. Today, we have another amazing woman that we're going to be interviewing. She is one of our Woman of Inspiration finalists. I'm here today with Julissa Soto. She is the CEO of Julissa Soto Latino Health Equity Consulting. Let me just tell you a little bit about her today. So she is a fireball. We just had a great conversation in the green room, but Julissa stands on the forefront of the movement for Latino health equity. She is a beacon of empowerment and change dedicated to positive visibility. Through her advisory, Julissa Latino Health Equity Consulting, she extends her influence from Colorado on a nationwide to a global scale. Soto has trained over 5,000 health providers and presented at 10,000 healthcare professionals across 117 countries on the power of cultural validation. Julissa has been force of change, leading the charge for Latino immigrant equality, inclusion, and health equity in Colorado and across the entire world. From her roots in teen parent programs to her pivotal role on the Colorado Vaccination Equity Task Force to advocacy for health equality at the American Diabetes Association, she has relentlessly pioneered programs aimed at empowering marginalized communities. I am so excited for this conversation. I know that we had only a glimpse to talk in the green room before we went live today, but your energy is so contagious, and I'm excited to have you on the Woman of Inspiration podcast. So welcome, Julissa.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite. I'm super excited to tell the world who I am and why, I am the way that I am. A lot of times people say I'm a little bit aggressive, and I always say, no, I'm assertive, but they need to understand where we come from because every
Mhm.
woman has a story, right? And every woman, those stories build us up. And a lot of the times people think that we just become this overnight, but it's a lot of crying, a lot of suffering, a lot of uncertainty, not understanding. Now imagine when you're from a different country, it's a little bit more difficult.
So let's start there. And, I want to dive into a little bit about, as a 12-year-old girl, we have, where does it all start from for most of us? Are we young women with a big dream and a big vision? So, do you remember what you wanted to do when you grew up? What was that 12-year-old little girl of you thinking you might do when you were younger?
Yeah, when I was younger, I always wanted to live in United States because I wanted to become who I am now, an activist, someone with wings. I didn't want my culture, my religion, and everything else in Mexico to cut all my wings because I knew that in Mexico I couldn't be the woman that I am now in United States. So yes, I do remember what I wanted to be, and it's exactly what I am right now. With a little bit of struggles, right? Because I got married when I was 15, and by 17 I already had my family. So that little girl with dreams had to hold on to her dreams because I live in a culture where if you're past 17 you were a little bit too old to find a husband. So my mom was in a rush to find a husband for me because I was getting older.
So let's start there. I mean, 15 years old. I mean, I got married when I was 35. I mean, that is so young. You're still actually growing. You haven't really even fulfilled so many you can't even drink yet. Just let's
Right,
say you can't even
exactly.
drink yet.
No, yeah,
But you can get married. So, like let's talk a little bit about that. What Tell us a little bit about your story.
yes, I was born and raised in Michoacan, Mexico. I was raised by a single mom with 7 kids. And I live in a town where you had to be married, you don't date. And if you date, people start talking about you. My mom always lived by the culture. And for her, it was very important what people will say about their daughters instead of letting her daughters live their dreams. And out of the four sisters, I was always the rebellious ones. I was always the one saying like, "Why, mom? Why you put up with my dad? He beats you up all the time. You can do it on your own. I can help you work." And my other sisters will be like, "Julissa, be quiet. Divorced women are not seen well in Mexico, right?" And I was like, "Who cares? If we're divorced, we're divorced, but with happiness, right?" And then when my mom came to me and said, "You like this person, you're gonna marry this person," I said, "No, mom, I want to continue going to school. I also want to keep breakdancing because way back then breakdancing was huge and I wanted to continue to breakdance and all of that." And my mom was telling me, "Mija, decent women don't breakdance." And that was in Mexico. And I was like, "But I love breakdancing, mom." And she's like, "No." And she told me, "You're gonna get married, mija, because you're kind of wild." And I said, "Just because I love dancing, I'm wild?" And she's like, "You're also very rebellious. You always tell me that you don't have I don't have to put up with your dad." And all those thinkings worry me. So I always had this freedom in me, and I got married to the father of my two kids who are 34 and 35 years old. And then when I got married with him, I was 15 and he was 28. And for me, I remember the first night when I got married, I called my mom and I said, "I want to go back home. This is not for me, mom." And she's like, "No, you're going to stay there. You're going to raise a family. We're going to take you out of school." And I said, "No, please, I want to continue going to school." So I lived with that man for a couple years, and he's the one that brought me to Colorado. I
Mm.
came to Colorado 27 years ago, crossed the border in the trunk of a car. My children crossed the border with my sister. I was 16 hours in that trunk. And in that trunk, I was like, yes, I'm going to United States. I'm going to go to a different country. Maybe it's a new life for me. I get to Colorado and my journey begins. Acculturation stress got to me, and and he continued treating me the way that he was treating me in Mexico, which he was beating me up like once or twice a week because I didn't cook right, or because I answer back, or because I don't listen. So he used to beat me up a lot. And I remember just playing with my kids this game as, "You're hiding and seek." So I will hide them in the closet when he used to beat me up. And then I will come out really fast when he beat me up, clean my face and everything, and pretend I was the most happiest woman in the world. So that was my life for 7 years. I got to Colorado and he continued doing the same things. And one day he beat me up almost to death, so I went into a coma. And when I woke up, he fled to Mexico, and I never saw him again. So my life started at the hospital with two broken legs, two broken arms, a cut in my head, and two children who were like, "Mom, we're hungry." And I didn't know how to work. I didn't speak English, and I was undocumented. So all the ads were against me. But it's the Lord who said, "I have something different for you," and this is where I am now.
First, I want to acknowledge everything that you've been through. Like, you are an incredibly strong woman. And, as I'm listening to your story, I know that there's going to be women that are listening to this podcast who can relate to you. And it's not a small number, it's a very large number
Oh yeah.
of women who are going to say, I know exactly how much strength and courage it took for you to stay, but even more courage to leave. So it's incredible. I can't even in the trunk of a car for 16 hours. A lot of
Yes.
things went through your head during that time.
Yeah, I become a public health advocate in the trunk of a car. I remember breathing to a straw because the car was super hot, and I was hiding. I was a lot thinner way back then, right? And so I was hiding in where you hide your spare tire. I was hiding there, and the car was so hot, and I couldn't talk to the driver because immigration might hear us, right? So I would knock and say, "The car is getting too hot," and my back got burned, but I couldn't say nothing because if I say something, an immigration officer will see that I'm in the trunk of a car and will send me back home. And I didn't want to go back home. I wanted to succeed. I wanted to be the woman that I am now. And I always tell everyone, I prefer to die on my feet than live on my knees. No, I'm gonna try till the end because that was me. And I never looked back once I came to United States. And even though my struggles, I was like, no, I'm going to succeed in this country. I'm going to see you know, what people has to offer here. And it was very hard because nobody will want to hire somebody with no experience. And then when they asked me for the first time about my resume, I was like, what is that? And then when they asked me about papers, my social security number, I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then when they say you speak English, I don't know what you're talking about. So all of those struggles. But 27 years later, I have my master's in public health. I have dual citizenship. I'm American and I'm Mexican. And and I'm one of the commissioners of the state of Colorado. So it's a happy ending with lots of struggles, for sure.
I got goosebumps. And I've always said that every woman has a story. Your story does not define you, it empowers you.
Yes.
Yulisa, your story has empowered you to reach new levels and conquer and break the glass ceiling for so many other women. And so I just really want to say, um, I'm so glad to see that you are using your voice for good and the impact that you make. I don't even know if you understand the ripple effect. I've always said that, you know, if we only knew how many people we've impacted in our lives through the stories that we're sharing. And so that is one of my goals with the Women of Inspiration podcast, to share the career paths and the journeys, because every single woman that I've met and interviewed has an incredible story, and yours certainly is unique. And I'm so proud to see that you're doing incredible things in your life and inspiring others along your way. I want to talk about a little bit of, you had so many barriers. What are some of the biggest barriers that you faced as you became walked through that door and now said, okay, I'm leaving that life behind. I am now moving into another life. And so, what kind of some of the barriers, the biggest ones that you faced?
The biggest one that I face is pure discrimination. Discrimination because people think that I think with an accent, I speak with an accent. Sometimes I just don't get the respect that others get. I feel it a lot of the times, and not everyone, right? But if you're white, it's a little bit easier for you than me. I have to work 1,000 times more in order to get a seat at the table. So I have to prove myself many times just to be invited to a meeting sometimes. So I continue to face the discrimination among systems that they're not built in the first place for BIPOC communities, so I think that has been one of the biggest barriers, since my beginning till now that I'm a CEO. It's the same. I remember saying, when I become a CEO, I'm going to get a lot more respect from everyone and everything. That's not necessarily true. It just changes because now you're empowered to say, excuse me, I know my rights. That comment that you just made is not acceptable. That's a microaggression, and I don't accept that microaggression, right? And before, I used to hear those microaggressions, but I was like, be quiet, Julissa. It's not your country. It's not, you don't have rights. You just have to be quiet and get beat up by systems. I always tell people that this is my biggest challenge because coming out from a domestic violence relationship, I feel that I have been married because I have been in the public health system for 27 years. So I feel that I went to another relationship, that I'm going through domestic violence for 27 years, but it's with the system. The only difference that they don't beat me up physically, but they beat me up mentally every day. And you have to be really strong. So I always tell everyone, I'm still in a domestic violence relationship, in a system, violence relationship, not domestic. Domestic was before, but system violence relationship, because those systems are not built for us. So I continue to be a survivor. I learned my skills from my past relationship. And it's unfortunate they have to be that way. But I want all the Latino girls, the little girls that they're looking at me and they're like, oh my God, she's so beautiful. Look at her hair. Look at her makeup. Look how she dressed. I also want them to be ready for a world out there that it's not built for us. But that's why I always say the truth. When I go and speak at high schools, I say, they're like, oh my God, you make it look so easy. And I say, yes, mi niña, but if you just give me an hour to tell you about my story, you're also going to think about, like, wow. Because a lot of these girls think, I'm going to graduate from a university, get my career, and I'm all set. And I'm like, ah, no, mi niña, no, it doesn't work like that. So that's the biggest barrier that I continue to face. And, and even for awards, I have heard in some of the nominations that they have done before here in Colorado, I have been discriminated even to receive an award. The people who nominate me fight systems because they're like, why she didn't win? What happened? And one of the awards, I can give you an example. I won an award, and and I was just not present, so they never sent my award. And when I asked for my award, they said that I was bothering them so much. And when I received my award, it was in the front, in the floor, in my front door. And I'm like, come on, that's how we celebrate equity. So I continue to face even at events, and I just have it. 27 years later, I'm a lot older and wiser. I used to cry about those things. Now I'm like, oh my God, this is funny. Here I go again. Who do I need to talk to? You know?
So I think the message that you're sending to the young women is really interesting and very like as I'm sitting here listening to your story, I see, what we all see is a strong, confident, beautiful woman who is unafraid of using her voice. And that is the message that we need to continue to send to our young leaders out there. I think it's so important that you are having those conversations that you're like, here's the thing though, I worked to get there. This did not happen. I was not lucky to get this happened. It was hard work. And I think that we need to have those conversations about the relatability, and the reality is that there's a lot of struggle that exists for women. And you didn't get to where you are because you took the easy way. You got there because you used your voice and you worked really hard. You went back and you got your MBA. So let's talk
Mhm.
about that. I want to talk about your career path, getting you into the role where you're, speaking, to 10,000 healthcare professionals, where your message has been shared to 117 countries. So let's
Yeah.
talk about that career path of empowerment to get you to that point.
Yes, and I just got back from Germany, Italy, Switzerland, and Paris, working with immigrants in those communities and building access to care. And those communities also bringing vaccines to the immigrants that we have in Europe too. So for me, it was an honor to be in Europe. But for me, it starts with when I used to run to the emergency room when my kids used to be sick because I didn't know the safety net clinics, primary care physician. That wasn't a strange conversation to me when they used to ask me, do you have a primary care physician? I was like, what is that? I didn't know what was that, right? So I used to run to the emergency rooms. And when I was in the emergency room, I remember the doctors letting others pass in front of me, and I got there before them. Now I do understand that mine was not an emergency, that was an emergency, right? But way back then, when your kids are sick and you don't speak the language, that's an emergency for you, especially when you live in isolation, you don't have family members. So I was like, oh my God. And I remember getting on my knees in the emergency room, crying and telling the Lord, I said, please, Lord, help me understand this healthcare system. If you help me understand this healthcare system, I promise you that I will dedicate my life to become a public health servant. And he did give me everything I was looking for. So my career starts from there. And I started looking into careers that I can impact my community. When I was in a coma and I got out of the hospital, um, one of the nurses who happened to be white, I call her my white angel, she told me, do you want to go back to your apartment? And I said, I don't want to go back to my apartment because there's blood all over the wall and blood in the carpets, and I don't want my kids to see this. So she was like, okay, let me help you. So she took me to the Department of Human Services where they helped me move to another apartment, helped me with food stamps, cash, Medicaid for my children. And she took me and she got me through that. And I remember her kids being like 17 years old looking at me, and I used to remember saying, no, 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 mijo, I can carry that and I can help you. And the kids were like, no, you need to rest. those were well educated kids now that I look back, because they were feeling for me, they were there for me, they were helping me move, and they just wanted me to rest. So my white angel, I call her my white angel, she told me, "Do you want to go to school to learn how to speak English?" And I was like, "Yes, that's what I've been wanting to do, but my ex-husband didn't allow me to go to school to speak the language." So she was like, "Okay." So we started going to different high schools at night, where they way back then it used to be ESL classes, English as a second language. So she used to take me to different high schools because it was free. So I used to go every night to learn. And then after that, she told me, "You want to finish your high school? And you can work on your GED." And I was like, "I don't know what that means, but everything you're telling me to do is good for me, so I'm gonna follow that." So I did, and I finished my GED in 3 months. And then I was like, "Oh, I for me, I felt like I had a PhD way back then. I'm like, oh my God, I have a PhD." And she was like, "I'm sending you to college." And I said, "I don't know what that means, but I'm gonna go if you tell me how, if you teach me how." So she registered me, and I remember when I had my associate's degree, I thought I was done, because I keep going to school, but in the meantime working as a waitress, receiving some assistance from the government, and going here and there, right? I was like, "Okay, I'm done." And she's like, "No, you're gonna go here and you're gonna go there." And by the time I look back, I said, "Okay, lady, when am I going to be done with school?" Because I know that you white people by then, I understand how the white folks operate. So I said, "You white people love school. I don't know why you guys love school and you stay in school forever, but I'm done. I need to start my life." And she's like, "Guess what? I applied for you to get your master's, and you're going to take some classes at Emory University." And I'm like, "Okay." She was so excited because that's one of the elite schools, right? But for me, it was just a school. It was not an elite school. So she was all excited. So I went and got some classes there, came back to Denver, graduated with my master's, and my journey begins from there. And after that, I was so empowered that I knew nobody was going to beat me up again. I know that nobody could take my education away from me and my intelligence, because my ex-husband used to tell me that I was stupid, that I was worthless, and I believed it for a while. But then I was like, "No, I'm super smart, I'm beautiful." And I never saw how beautiful I was, because my face was purple most of the time, and by the time that it was healing, that it was turning a little bit yellow, he will beat me up again. So it was no time for my face to heal. So before, I never knew that I was that pretty, that I had such a beautiful hair, and I love style. So I always tell people also that I come from nada to Prada, because I love brands. I love Belmont, I love Versace, I love Prada, I love Louis Vuitton, Gianfranco Ferré. I love all those brands. And when I was super poor, I used to buy the magazine. Not that I'm so rich now, but I'm better, right? I used to read magazines and look at magazine pictures, and I said, "That's going to be me one day." So I was calling it to the universe. I keep calling it to the universe. So I wanted to be somebody big in public health. I am big in public health. I wanted to be super stylish and get to know some of these designers. I have done that too. Um, I wanted to drive a car that I really liked, which in the past it was the Range Rovers, but now it's the G Wagon. And later, who knows? I've been calling to the universe a Lamborghini. I'm like, "Please, Lord, I'm working really hard. Send me a Lamborghini, you know. But the thing in here is that that's how I started my career, with my white angel by my side.
Well, what an incredible journey. You had certainly a white angel beside you. I think, as we talked about in the green room, you only need one person to believe in you, for
Yes,
you to believe in you even more. And so I want to ask you, and this is completely unscripted. You kind of blew my questions away, by the way. Um, is when you had that one white, what was her name?
Marie.
Marie. So, Marie, I hope you're listening. You are the angel, and I'm sure there's a cloud in heaven with your name on it. But when you have that one person that's believing in you, as I had in my story as well, even though we know we're strong enough, there are these times that we almost give up, but we don't. And it's because of that one person that believes in us.
Yeah.
So what were the did you ever think that you were gonna not continue and follow her advice? Or, was there any time that ever a time that you thought about giving up, that it's just too hard?
Yes. It was a time where I told her, I see that you keep asking me to do things, but I don't see you being the same way with your own kids. And she answered, my kids don't have the potential that you have. So I
Mm,
was quiet after that. And I was like, okay, let me keep it moving. And when I wanted to give up, she's like, I remember that she said, I have potential. I have potential. She believed in me. So I didn't want to embarrass her per se, you
mm,
know, and I didn't want to embarrass her with her own kids. So and now her own kids were like telling me, you know what, Julissa, every time we struggle, she always put your example. She's like, look at Julissa, look where she come from, look where we met, because we met at the hospital when I was beat up to death, you know. So look at her, look at where she come from, and her kids and many people always say, oh my goodness, my parent always put you as an example, and I said because I am an example. And yes, I did wanted to give up. And still now, sometimes I'm like, I don't want to be the CEO. I don't want to be the commissioner no more, but I have come too far to go back, that I'm going to keep fighting the good fights, and I'm going to continue fighting, and I'm going to continue I'm going to continue looking beautiful, fighting the good fights, because when you fight and in a beautiful way, and impactful lipstick, whatever your lipstick, your favorite lipstick is, put it on and get out there and continue fighting for those who don't have a voice, because you are the voice of the voiceless.
beautiful. And I really hope that Maria will hear this, and I hope that she knows that the impact that she's made. Do you still keep in touch with her?
I do. I do. She's at a senior home, and sometimes she remembers me, sometimes she doesn't. But I always say, "You remember me who I was?" And she was like, and sometimes she remembers me, like when she saw me at the hospital, she's like, "Oh, let me clean your face." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Go ahead and clean my face. You will remember me then." And then she's like, "Oh my goodness, how are you doing?" And she will tell me things like this, like, don't look at the mirror. And because at the hospital they cover the mirror, so I don't look at the mirror, right? So I guess she remembers that about me, because when she sees me, she tells me, don't look at the mirror. And I said, no, I don't. No, I don't, because I might see something I don't like, right? And she's like, you're right. So yeah,
Mm.
we continue with our conversations. I used to work for the Alzheimer's Association. I used to be the director at the Alzheimer's Association, and work with people with dementia. So I have experience talking to people with Alzheimer's. So for me, I really enjoy talking to her, and it's a lot of people along the way that they have built my path, and have helped me be who I am. A lot of people said to me, was it the Latino community that supported you? Well, the Latino community, especially the community that I come from, don't have a voice. So how could they support me? No, it was always white women and white men who believe in me and say, oh my goodness, we know you're going to do something big. So now when they see me owning my own company and doing great things for the community, uh, it's amazing for them, and I think for my community too, the undocumented community, the monolingual Spanish speaking community in Colorado love me, and I know why they love me, because they know I'm representing them, and I will never sell myself for short and not remember who I used to be. I always tell my community when they see me out there, because they do ask me, can I take a picture, can I get an autograph, right? My community think I'm famous, and I don't know if I'm famous or infamous, but I said to them, are you serious? You want a picture with me? And they're like, oh, yes, you're somebody big for us. I thank the Lord for those opportunities. And when people's like, how do you want us to call you? And I say, I'm just Julissa from the block. I'm just that woman that didn't speak English. I'm still that woman that was in the trunk of a car for 16 hours. When I speak to other commissioners, most of the commissioners are not working in the hood. They're not frontline workers. I
Mm.
continue to be that because I chose to be that. I can have other people be at my events, at my clinics, but I decide to go to every single one of them because I want to make sure that my community is treated with respect and dignity.
Beautiful. And I want to acknowledge the fact that your adversity has been an incredible gift. And I think when we choose those paths, we're not walking in to a situation without that experience and that lived experience. And there's something to be said for the resilience that we build along those journeys, where that resilience is, in my definition, is what um not what has happened to you, but what you choose to do with what has happened to you. And that's my definition of resilience. And I think you model that so perfectly. And I want to, just for a moment here, do you stop and acknowledge how far you've come and celebrate those successes along the way, Julissa?
No, I'm pretty bad at because I'm pretty bad at doing that. When I'm successful in one project, I keep it moving and say, "Oh my God, I need to save the world." You know how we all have the saver mode. We want to save the world. So with me, I succeed in one clinic, for example, and then I'm already organizing the other one. I'm already thinking, what's next? Who should I partner with? When I receive awards, I'm like, "Thank you very much," but then I have to continue moving. I have to get better on celebrating me and loving me, and I do love me, but celebrating, I think I don't take the time to do that. And the reason why is because I have come too far, and also I had had so many successes that I just don't want to go back, and all those things being taken away from me, because everything has been taken away from me, and I know that that's a bad thing. That's a thing that I need to work with my therapist about it. But um but I do acknowledge that I'm a super smart woman, that I'm super strong, that I'm intelligent, that I'm one in a million that survive domestic violence, that survive in a way that empower me. I empower myself to, with my story, do something really good. I always tell people, you keep throwing rocks on me and I'm gonna build me a castle, you
Mm.
know because that's the way I learn how to live my life. I don't know any better. I have never thrown the towel, because if I throw it, who was going to pick it up for me, right? So yeah, I no, I don't celebrate all of that, but thank you for reminding me.
Okay, well, I'm the celebration cheerleader over here because women of inspiration pave the path for others to follow. And when we celebrate our successes, we celebrate the successes of every single woman. So just remind yourself of that. When you are able to celebrate your successes, you are celebrating for every woman at the same time.
Well, I'm going to celebrate at the Woman of Inspiration Awards because I'm one of the finalists. And let me tell everyone here who's listening to this podcast, when I was in the trunk of a car, I would never thought I would ever visit New York. And I would never ever think that I was going to go to New York and be a finalist of such a prestigious awards, right? So I'm excited. I'm going to go over there to New York. I promise not to work. I'm gonna celebrate and celebrate en grande, big.
Well, we look forward to celebrating with you and meeting you in person. This has been an incredible conversation. It's really heartfelt, authentic. I really appreciate you having no filter. And, a woman in a position of power, I think more leaders in positions of power like yourself need to really peel back the layers of the onion and open up those stories so that others can see that true journey. It's so important. It's inspiring. It's relatable to so many other women. So thank you so much for sharing. I have a couple more questions, and you talk about the support that you received on the way, and we know about Maria, your white angel. I want to talk about the male champions. As a single mom myself, I have a son. And, I looked around and I'm like, where are all the role models for men? Where are all the men that are champions for women? And so I have been on a mission for the past 5 years to really bring men to the conversations that are champions for women, that are lifting them up instead of pulling them down. And we call them support hers. So Who are the support hers in your world? Let's tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. The support hers is my husband, you know, my husband who I have been married with him for 12 years, Wesley Hughes, a beautiful black man from Texas. He has been one of my supporters, and he always tells me, go out there. He has nothing to do with in the world that I live in, or nothing like that. But he always tells me, go conquer the world. And when you're ready to come home, I'm here. And when I come home, he already cook and clean. So I love all of that, right? It's completely the opposite of the world I'm coming from. Another one is Rich McLean. He's my spiritual mentor. He's the one that I go to when I have some doubts about my faith, when I have some doubts about why is it that the Lord allowed me to go through so much pain and not others. You know how we always think it's always me, why can somebody else turn, so he's the one that reads the Bible for me and tells me, stay focused, stay grounded. The Lord always chooses his best soldiers for the best wars, right? So I'm like, I guess, Lord, you chose me because I had been in a coma twice and he has brought me back. My first time beat up to death by my ex-husband. And the second one, I attempt to kill myself. So I'm an attempt survivor. I'm an attempt survivor, and I also serve on the Suicide and Prevention Commission. So I also talk about my experience, how mental health got to me, and my journey after the hospital. So I'm a keynote speaker for suicide prevention and also everything that has to do with health, right? So Rich McLean is the one that says to me, don't give up, don't give up, keep pushing, keep fighting. And that's what I do every day.
Beautiful. And how do we encourage more men to the conversation to be support her champions?
I think a lot of the times men are very afraid to support us because of all the laws in United States that you cannot give a hug or a kiss to somebody because now that's sexual harassment or that's oh my God. But that's in the white world. In the Latino world, we hug and kiss. We get really close. You know how the white folks say, "Don't get too close to my bubble," and I'm like, "What bubble? I don't see no bubble." Because we're very loving and caring. That's part of my culture. So I think men are very afraid of mentoring someone, getting close to someone, but then it's gonna come and hurt them too, right? It's gonna hurt them. So I encourage all of you men who are listening to this podcast not to be afraid. Be authentic. And just make sure that you find that real partner, the real woman that you might want to work with and that aligns with your values and everything else. Don't be afraid of us. We want you guys to be close to us. We need you. You are a man. This is somehow out of men world. So we need you and we need you to come to our Woman of Inspiration Award so I can meet you and maybe you can mentor me too.
And I think that's a really great message because there is a balance. I think that it's women and men working together. Together we're stronger. It's not us versus them. And so I really am a very, very big believer that in order to achieve, equity is that we have to have both parties at the table. It can't be just men and it can't be just women. We need both of us together. And there's this beautiful dynamic that happens when you can have both minds working towards the same goal, and we will achieve it way faster than just on our own. So, love that message. Um, I know that we're running really close to our time, and I cannot wait to hug it out with you in person because I am a hugger as well. So, I know that we're going to have that. We've talked about your white angel, but who are some of I think I want to ask you, she's obviously one of the most significant people in your journey. Um, what other women or who do you lean on for support, or who do you find inspiring that sort of, that role model that you seek for inspiration?
You know, I wish I can say as a Latina woman that my mother lives in a country where it's a third world country, and my mother don't understand the way I feel, the way I live my life, and doesn't support it. I also wanted everyone to hear my truth. So a lot of the times people say my mom, my sister, my family, but a lot of people out there who are listening to this podcast need to understand that I come from a different cultures, that when you support a woman like me, you also get in trouble. So my sisters are super also conservative, and my sister wish to support me in many ways, but they also don't want to challenge the culture like I have challenged the culture. They're not risk takers. So woman, I can tell you that no, I just go to the Lord. I just go to the Lord. I haven't found that woman that don't feel threatened by me a lot of the times, thinking I might take their jobs or I am better than them. No, I haven't found that. Maybe one day, but I did want it to be extremely honest with you and in this podcast, because I know a lot of women out there have said to me, my family don't support me. I don't have no support system. I said, I didn't either, but now I can be your support system. I can help you succeed, and we let's move forward together, right? I always offer myself for other young women, but I know my family till today. They know I'm going as a finalist to New York, but they have no idea of all my challenges in the work. Oh, what my mother saw is that Julissa got divorced. Julissa didn't continue with that man, and I ashamed her. She's embarrassed of the way I live my life. But I had to choose between surviving and thriving or the culture.
I want to just thank you for being so authentic on that. We don't talk about that enough. I think that sometimes the inner circles that we have, either in your situation, it's just a different, your ambition is almost a threat to the culture. And so they can only see the negatives, the divorce, and not following the path that was laid out for you. They don't see the beauty of your ambition and your tenacity and your drive and your quest for knowledge and your shine is so bright. And so I love the shine. I embrace the shine, but I love the fact that you're touching base because not everybody has that support system, and that's the truth. And sometimes your people closest to you don't see the light that you carry.
Yes, they don't. They don't, because that other the other light that they see, that it's the only light that they see, doesn't allow them to see, like you say, all the beauty that I have in me, how intelligent, how I'm mobilizing systems, how I'm bringing best practices to a country that is not even mine. Tell me how many immigrant women who used to be undocumented, it's in Germany, Italy, Switzerland, Paris, bringing her best practices to another country, another country, right? And my mom don't see that. My mom, oh, what she sees is that I'm divorced, and now that I'm married to a black man, nothing to do with my culture. So she feels that I'm too rebellious, that I'm doing everything the opposite way, instead of her thinking that's the way that my daughter lives her lives. We need to respect. We need to celebrate that she's celebrating herself. But that's okay. The Lord celebrates me. You are going to celebrate me. Other people that don't know me always celebrate me. And who knows, maybe I'm impacting little girls out there saying, you know what, I don't have none of those things that she's talking about, but she made it. Why not me?
And the ripple is far reaching, and hopefully someday, um, I'm an optimist at heart. And, I never say never. So it's just not right now. And so maybe someday in the future, maybe you can share the podcast with her. Maybe that someday will come that they can celebrate your successes and see what a bright light you are and the impact that you're making in the lives of others, because you truly are. And I know that we are on the end of our podcast here, and I'm so excited. Like, I got goosebumps so many times during this interview. So thank you so much again for joining me here. Um, this is a Woman of Inspiration podcast, and it would not be a Woman of Inspiration podcast without me asking you, what is your definition of a woman of inspiration?
Oh, my definition: fierce, red lipstick. That's a must. Um, tenacity, tenacity, fearless. Um, for me, a woman of inspiration is that woman that knows they can cry, but then they can wear their heels and their red lipstick and let's go next to the next battle. That's a woman of inspiration for me. A woman of inspiration is that one that keeps fighting the good fights and still looking good.
Well, I'm going to say a woman of inspiration. I'm looking at her right here, right now, and I so excited. Thank you so much for sharing your story, and you're doing an amazing work. And yes, I am looking forward to celebrating you, but also showing you that there are women in the world that there's no competition, and I think we need to change that. The reality is what you shared, is that competition, women look at others as competition, but there's more room at that table for everybody. So, we just have to have more conversations and being really open and honest about that. So, thank you for shedding some light. How can people find out more about the work that you're doing?
Go to julissasoto.com. My name is spelled Julissa. Soto is my last name, Soto, julissasoto.com. Please follow me on LinkedIn, Julissa Soto, and let's work together. Let's build this journey together. Let's continue fighting the good fights, and I will see all of you guys soon.
And I have to say, we haven't even had a conversation about the bigger vision. And I am so excited to be on this journey with you. So thank you so much, Julissa. What a fantastic podcast. Thank you to our listeners for joining in. Please, if you loved the podcast, we'd love to hear about you and your thoughts around it. But I'd also really love for you to share it widely. With the women and the men and the people in your network that need to hear this message. Share it with everybody. So thank you so much for joining us on the Woman of Inspiration podcast. We have 2 more minutes in the green room if we want to go into the green room, or we can end here. So let's talk about that spirituality in the green room.
Let's do it.
Okay, this is something very new that I've started and I absolutely love it. And we only have 3 minutes. But when we talk about being authentic and we talk about empowering other women and where we get our sources of inspiration, where do you get that source of inspiration when the light is when there is no light, when all there is darkness? How do you, Julissa, what keeps you going in those situations? Like, is it spiritual? I mean, do you pick up the signs? Are you manifesting? What is that for you?
My faith is what keeps me going. My faith, and then calling everything I want to the universe. If I have a problem, for example, today, and I can get the right answer, I give it to the Lord. I say, Lord, this is just too much for me. I'm giving it to you, and waiting for him to speak to me. I'm very much connected with the universe and myself. So that's what keeps me going. And being authentic is a risk, right? Everybody in the past told me, don't be authentic. Don't tell people that you have been through domestic violence, that you attempt to kill yourself. Don't. And I was like, no, if somebody is going to love me, it's going to love me for who I am and my authenticity, right? So those who love me is because they know I'm authentic. What you see is what you get with me, and I don't hide anything. That doesn't make me any less or more than anyone else. I'm just super authentic, and things that you don't talk in United States, I do talk about it. I do talk about it, and I'm like, this is what's happening, and this is what's happening to me. So the Lord, my faith, and calling it to the universe.
So let me ask you, what is that for you when you say, I'm calling the universe? How do you receive that message? How do you know? Do you hear voices? Do you wake up and it appears? Like, what is that for you?
Okay, for example, I'm going to give you an example. I was looking for a house that it was fully furnished, that is a model home. Those model homes that you go see and they decorate so beautifully. I don't have that imagination. And I keep saying to the universe, listen, universe, I want it this way. I want lamps to be white, the sofas to be white, but the tables to have a little bit of black with gold. And I describe everything. Well, after 3 years, last Sunday, I found it exactly the way I wanted it after 3 years. But I didn't give up thinking, oh my God, the universe is not listening. The Lord is not listening. Nobody's listening. I keep saying, I know that's going to come my way. I know that's going to come my way. Also, I said, I want my retirement home to be by the beach, right? When I wake up, I see the beach and everything. You remember, I came to United States defeated and poor. So I went back in my retirement home. The patio is the beach. So yes, that's the way the universe communicate with you. You find exactly what you need and want.
But you have to be very specific with what you're asking. And the other thing too is don't dismiss the signs.
Yes.
So talk about the signs because I think people walk day to day on autopilot sometimes, and there could be that house that had exactly what you wanted, but if they're not open to receiving it and going, this is it. I'm giving it to you, and they walk right past it. So do you do that every single day? Is that ingrained in you? Is that do you just listen like I do? And I just, it's just like I'm always receiving. I'm like, that's a sign. I gotta go. Doesn't make sense right now.
Yeah,
Are we
every
speaking
morning.
the same language?
Yes, every morning I listen to the homily. Every morning. And if I don't listen to the homily, it's like I'm missing something, like I didn't go to the gym, right? I'm missing something. So every morning I listen to the homily, I listen to the word of the Lord, how my day is gonna go by, and go from there. And also say to the universe, thank you, universe, for giving me all these ideas. And I'm still waiting on ABC and the idea. And universe, I've been working on it. And let me tell you how I have been working on it. Because you can manifest, but if you're not working towards it, it's not gonna appear. You manifest, you work for it, and you wait. Patience is the key.
And you trust that the universe has always got a bigger plan for you. Is that belief is so incredibly important. Would you agree?
I agree, 100%.
Thank you so much. This was just a quick behind the scenes. I know we're going to have many more conversations, but thank you so much for joining us. We're so aligned on so many levels, and I love, love, love your authenticity. So I look forward to celebrating your successes and being on this journey with you. Thank you so much.
Muchísimas gracias.